Welcome to Next Act Cruising. Have you ever wondered what a Viking Ocean Cruise is like? Or have you ever wondered whether it was worth the cruise price? In this video, we are going to give you part 2 of our full review of our Viking cruise. Specifically, we're going to talk about the vibe on the ship, the activities, visiting new countries, how we came out on some of the things we feared, like seasickness, and a good number of other tips and tidbits of what it was like to be on a Viking Ocean Cruise. At the end of the video, we're going to share with you the full price of this trip. Our previous video was part 1 of our review of Viking Ocean Cruise to the Panama Canal and Central America. In part 1, we focused on the dining, the food, the drinks, the service, and whether we gained any weight. If you haven't watched that video, check it out, except for the part about gaining weight. You could skip over that part. Now, without further ado, let's get on with part 2 of our cruise review.
One of our expectations of going on the cruise is that it would be relaxing. This particular cruise had 905 passengers, almost the maximum capacity, and it had around 400 crew members. Yet, the ship never felt crowded.
I'm very introverted, so being in crowded, hectic places is not my thing. And I never felt like that one moment on this cruise.
The demographics on this cruise was mainly senior citizens. And unfortunately, Sarah, I'm breaking it to you, I think we fit in that category now.
Oops. Really?
Yes, really.
Okay, if you say so.
I think that helped to contribute to the relaxing atmosphere on board, and people were constantly just looking for quiet, relaxing activities to do.
So many passengers were carrying around print and ebooks with them. In fact, I was surprised to see that many print books being carried around. So, what was Sarah reading? I was reading the 8th Outlander book written in my own heart's blood. As you know from watching the Rose Hall video, I'm a big Outlander fan, and this was, I think, my 3rd reading of the book, but it was just a relaxing book to take with me to read on my iPad, that one with the Kindle app, and I was waiting for some other ebooks to come from my library that I had on hold so I could borrow them. At the end of the trip, I did get one of my hold books available to borrow. That was one of the newer Jack Reacher books, Into Deep. I am also a big Reacher fan, and I just wish I could travel with only a toothbrush like Reacher does.
We didn't succeed at doing that, though.
No. That being said, there was a ton of things to do on board. We enjoyed many of the Enrichment Lectures. Our Viking Daily newsletter and the app kept us informed of the activities.
We mentioned in our Panama Canal video that prior to the canal transit day, that we had 3 lectures on the history and the construction of the Panama Canal. We also enjoyed other lectures that included the Caribbean, pirates, and space. Yes, even space.
So you're wondering where the space aspect fit in, and this was the deal. On the day we left port, we were supposed to be underneath the SpaceX launch that was going to rescue those stranded astronauts. Unfortunately, that launch was delayed, so we didn't get to see it go by overhead, but nevertheless, these lectures about space and the space station were really interesting.
And the person giving the lectures was actually a retired NASA rocket scientist, and he was very knowledgeable. There was also great music. The ship was not really big enough to have a large stage show, but we enjoyed the various musicians, and entertainers. There was live music in most venues and an evening show in the theater on most evenings. I also enjoyed a cooking demonstration. If you were wondering what I was doing while Sarah was reading her book, well, I downloaded some Apple Play music and was just chilling out listening to my music.
The games area had game tables with games and puzzle tables with puzzles, and there were just quite a few people getting together around those tables playing games. At night there were some movies shown on the big screen in the pool area, and there were several organized contests on sea days, namely the Baggo contest and the trivia contest. Bob is going to tell you about Baggo.
We had never played Baggo before, but Baggo is very similar to cornhole, if you're familiar with that, except the Baggo board is a foot shorter. And so the cruise director would organize these competitions that would involve the officers of the crew versus the passengers. Well, we didn't do it the first time on the first sea day. We watched. Then I think on the second time that there was the Baggo challenge, we tried it, but unfortunately we weren't very good. But as we were concluding the competition that day, there was a very nice gentleman from the state of Texas who came over and said, "Let me give you some coaching tips." So he showed me how I'm supposed to be throwing the Baggo. I was only using my arm, and you have to get your whole body movement into it. So after that, I did much better. And on the second time we played Baggo, it was very interesting. We are going to have a photo showing you where we would throw from on the steps. We would have one competition throwing from the bottom step, the middle step, and then the very top step. And the one on the top was the most challenging because there was a small silver can that was placed beyond the bottom of the step, and you had to try to throw the Baggo from the very top step into that can. If you were able to do it, it was worth 500,000 points. Now, surrounding the can were the two Baggo boards, and there was also a garbage can behind everything. You got a certain number of points for scoring a bucket in the garbage can or in the Baggo boards. So the competition was getting very, very heated between the officers and the passengers. So suddenly, people were making the shot for $500,000 in the silver can like you wouldn't believe. They were bouncing it off the first step into the can. And the score was very tight. So there were about 3 players left on each side. And so a young lady from the officers, who's the one holding the trophy, actually got up, and you had 2 opportunities to throw it in the silver can. She got both of them, 1,000,000 points. And so I was in the group that went next. And so I really was focused and concentrating. And my first throw, it bounced off the rim and didn't make it in the silver can. But the second one was my brief and fleeting moment of glory. I stood there and I concentrated. I threw it, and it went a beautiful arc right into the silver can, nothing but net. But unfortunately, we still got beat by 400,000 points. But it was a fun competition.
It was. Bob was very into it. And I wish I had a photo of Bob or a video of Bob trying to make that shot. I am sure his face was screwed up with a maximum concentration.
In fact, I was highly concentrating, but I could hear the cruise director down below. His name was Aaron, and he goes, "He is really concentrating." Then when I made my glorious Baggo shot, he said, "Well, that's what concentration will do for you." Okay, enough about that, Sarah.
Okay, besides putting all our energies into Baggo, we took great advantage of being able to walk around the deck, and we tried to get in 10,000 steps every day. And I think we talked a lot about exercise in part 1 of the review. The sports deck also had a few games to play. And 2 nights we went up there to do stargazing on our own. I took the laptop up so that we could pull up the star chart webpage, and then we would use our phones to find the longitude and latitude and put that in there so that we could see exactly what stars were above us. And there were several constellations, of course, and also 2 or 3 planets to see out there in the evening. And except for the ship slides, you had a lot of dark sky, so those stars just really show up.
For some quiet time in the room, there was a TV that had movies and shows available on it. It also had some of the enrichment lectures that were put up on the TV after the lectures had been completed. But we found that we watched very little TV because we were so involved in so many other activities. We just didn't have time for it.
I would say that there were more than enough activities to keep you busy. In fact, we found that we could not do all of them. We'd have to look through the schedule every day and prioritize what we really wanted to do.
We look forward to visiting some new countries on the trip, and we were able to add 5 new countries to our list. The evening before we had excursions, we had a port talk, and that would really get everyone excited and just ready to go for the next day's excursions. We have done a video on each excursion that we participated in, and if you're interested in those, please check them out. Every video from this cruise is organized in the Panama Cruise playlist.
I'll say that there was a good variety in the excursions that were offered, from easy to demanding, so you had a lot of choice of what you wanted to do. To be honest, we picked everything on the easy side and enjoyed each one of them. Departures and returns to the ship were very well organized, and we had no problems with that.
We mentioned in our preparation video for the cruise that we wouldn't need any visas for any of the countries that we were visiting. And it turns out, other than our initial embarkation on the ship, we didn't need our passports either. However, for every excursion we went on, we were required to take our ship ID card as well as a government-issued ID, which is like a driver's license. And you would also want to take maybe some cash and credit cards with you because you needed to do some tipping and maybe you wanted to purchase some souvenirs. I don't recall that we ever had to show our driver's license to any port authority. We just showed our ship ID card. However, always remember, bring that driver's license with you because you never know when you might need it.
I think the tipping aspect is good to briefly mention again at this point. With each excursion, there is at least a driver and 1 guide, maybe more, and it's customary at the end of those excursions to tip the drivers and guides. For this reason, we recommend that you bring along a number of small bills like 1s and 5s to easily do that tipping in cash, and they all accepted US dollars where we went. I will refer you to the video that is part 1 of this cruise review for more details on the tipping. One of my other expectations was to capture some good video on this cruise, and I'm still working on being able to do that on the go and knowing what I should get on the video. I think I did an okay job in getting enough footage to make the excursion videos.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Much better than I could have done.
I have to admit, though, I was really lacking in getting more photos and videos of our activities on board ship. I mean, I really should have been getting some video or photos of that Baggo tournament because it was high excitement. Next time, I'll try to do better.
In our preparation video, we talked about a number of fears we had prior to the cruise. Now let's examine those to see if they really were things we needed to prepare for, or just was it needless worrying. It was pretty hot all the way from Panama to Mexico with the humidity thrown in, but I think we survived it pretty well.
Contrary to my fear, there was no forced march through the jungle with chafing thighs. I think we picked our excursions pretty well for us, or at least for me. The weather was something to prepare for, but we knew it was going to be hot and we were ready for it.
And Viking, every time we went on an excursion, they handed out bottles of water and made sure that we were well hydrated.
Ooh, with cold towels when we came back.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, that was very refreshing.
In addition, I was getting over a chronic foot problem, so I was really worried about walking or standing too much, and that would get really painful. But I have to say, my foot was on the best behavior and I had no problems. And so I'm really pleased that that didn't become a problem for us on the trip, because it would have made things less fun, I think.
Yeah, we would have been miserable otherwise. But,
oh, that's right, because if I'm miserable, Bob's miserable too.
But of course. And something very important, we both stayed completely healthy on the cruise. Now, we had some days where we had rough seas. At least we thought they were rough, but probably they were minor in the big picture of things. But we did have one day with some swells that were 5 to 6 feet high.
All day long, too.
All day long.
So we did have, or I should say, I had some seasickness. Mostly, I would say I just would start to feel funny in my head. And I know you're saying, how could you tell the difference, Sarah? But I could. And I took some of the seasickness medication that I brought along with me, and it worked really well. I would just take one of those, and in a little bit, I would feel fine. We did both try some of the ginger chews, but I don't think they were near as effective as taking the medication. So I was really happy that we went ahead and got that prescription medication before we left.
Now let's check and see how our stress and anxiety levels were on the cruise. Thankfully, things went very smoothly. There were only 2 blips that actually occurred. One was waiting for a bus to take us from the hotel to the port to embark on the ship. Our bus didn't show, but our Viking representative quickly acted and got another bus there, but it was a slight delay. And again, that was minor. And on the trip back on the plane, we had one plane delay, but that was relatively minor in the whole scheme of the travel. And they were all resolved with no problems. As we related before, we were very relaxed on this vacation. In fact, it is probably the most relaxing vacation that we've ever had. We were very thankful to be on this cruise and for only having to unpack one time for the entire cruise. That was great.
Very nice.
We signed up for the pre-cruise extension in Fort Lauderdale, and we did this to take advantage of Viking's door-to-door service, including transfers. This did make the trip a lot more comfortable and much less stressful. There were Viking greeters and assistants at every transfer point. We will add that the embarkation and the disembarkation processes went very smoothly and were very well organized, even for first-time cruisers like we are. It was great. Now, before we get to the moment you've been waiting for, the cost, we want to share a few more tips with you that we learned on the cruise.
One thing we loved about the Viking cruise is that there were really no extras being thrown at you all of the time. You know, we've said we didn't have the Silver Spirits drink package, so we had to pay for extra bar drinks that we wanted to have, but that was minor. It was great to eat wherever we wanted and not have any other cost for Wi-Fi, laundry, or anything like that during the cruise.
Viking provides free Wi-Fi on the ship. However, it's not for streaming, so if you're addicted to Netflix, you would have been out of luck. And I think the Wi-Fi worked pretty well. I know I tried to text from some photos and had a little glitch in doing that, but for the most part, we were able to get our emails and to do text messages with no problem. The Viking onboard Voyager app worked as it should. It was user-friendly and very accurate, and we used it quite frequently for scheduling and for seeing what the menus were at the restaurants.
We loved meeting new people on board, and we always love meeting new people when we travel.
Absolutely.
Many of them were frequent cruisers, and in fact, there was one couple on board that had been on more than 40 Viking cruises.
Wait a minute, Sarah, did I hear you right? 40 Viking cruises?
Bob, we had a ways to go.
We do. That's incredible. And they were very nice people. We visited with them some as well.
Everyone was friendly and we enjoyed talking to them. It is always fun to meet new people, and one of the great things is they've never heard your stories and jokes before.
The free laundry on board worked great. We did our laundry 2 times. The first time we did it, there was no problem. We were about the only people there using it, so the washers and dryers were readily available. The second time we did our laundry, however, we had to wait just a little bit because it was a busy laundry day. But all the other passengers who were using the laundry were very cognizant of the amount of time that their clothes would be in the washer or the dryer, and they made a great effort to get there to make sure no other passengers had to wait. And in fact, what Sarah and I found out is that we could set our watches and use the timer on the watch, and that way we always got there before the washer or the dryer stopped working.
Did we pack too much or too less? I think we were really close to being spot on. I think we could both identify maybe 1 to 3 pieces of clothing that we could have left out of our suitcases. Probably the one thing that I didn't think about ahead of time that I wish I had is an extra jacket or 2 for wearing in the air conditioning. And maybe one of those could be fancy enough to wear in the restaurant in the evening, because lots of times the air conditioning was just fine. Sometimes it would feel a little bit cool, and I had one jacket with me, but I maybe wish I had an extra one or something so I could switch them up. And so that's one hint for you in packing for something like this, is that even if you go on a warm or hot weather cruise, the air conditioning inside may be pretty cool.
And thank goodness it was, because it was very pleasant. Now, what you really want to know, and we need a drum roll here. Okay, drum roll. How much did this cruise cost us? And we are sharing these costs so you, the other travelers, can have an opportunity to budget for a cruise that's very similar to this one. So often we've seen bargain cruises and wondered, what really will the cost be? How many extras will there be that are added to the cost? Cruise price is one thing to consider, but there are other expenses to consider as well. In going through this list of costs, Sarah will identify for you what the costs were and what we spent extra on, just so we would have more comfort.
Okay, let's get started then. We are going to start with a base price for the cruise, and for the 2 of us, and all these prices will be for the 2 of us, the cruise price was $10,198. I consider this partially for comfort, because in choosing Viking as your cruise line, you're getting so many higher level things than you might on another cruise line, and also so many included things in your cruise price.
Right.
The next item is drinks. We've mentioned a number of times we didn't have the drink package, so we paid for drinks from the bar as we went along. The beer and wine was included with a meal, so we didn't have to pay separately for that. So the extra drinks from the bar that we had came to $139. When we booked the cruise, we included the Viking airfare with it, and that was $1,098. And that was for an economy seat from where we live to Fort Lauderdale, Florida and back. When we booked the cruise, we also requested to use the Air Plus extra booking services that came to $300. When you do that, you're able to kind of self-select the airline and the route within some pretty broad limitations, but we had no problem in being able to take the flight and the airline that we wanted. So I consider that a comfort factor in paying that extra for that.
It's well worth it.
And then we also signed up for the pre-cruise extension in Fort Lauderdale. That was 2 nights in Fort Lauderdale. All the transfer services, 2 breakfasts were included, and
our excursion to the Everglades.
Our excursion to the Everglades, that's right. That was $1,988. I consider that partially comfort because we wanted to be relaxed and be to our embarkation city in advance so that we wouldn't feel stressed about trying to fly in the same day, which is probably not a good idea anyway. The next item that we paid with the booking was insurance. That was $1,698. We didn't need any of the insurance. We didn't have any changes or emergencies, and thank goodness for that. But we're older now, and we might. In fact, we were talking to some other passengers who'd been on a previous Viking cruise, and one of them had had a serious health incident during a cruise and said that they had the Viking insurance, and it just was wonderful for when that crisis happened. Outside of our initial booking, we had some extra expenses. The first were our seat upgrades. With our initial booking, that was for economy seating, and what we did after our air reservations became final in Delta, we went into the Delta app and we upgraded our seats to Comfort Plus, so that's definitely in the comfort category, and that was $249. We also changed one excursion. We were going to do just all included excursions, but we had a little bit of a reservation glitch on one of them, and so we changed and went to a fee-based excursion, and that cost us $178.
And I think I'm the reason why we had the reservation glitch. I think I forgot to click on it when I was selecting our excursions we were doing.
But the one we ended up on was good.
It was very good.
Okay, then we had the kind of the onboard obligatory tips, which is based on your cruise price or nights, and that was $476. Then we've talked a couple of times about the cash tips. We brought along $300 of cash and small bills to use for our excursion tipping and our onboard tipping, and that was about even, about $150 for excursion tipping and $150 for extra onboard tipping for our favorite crew members.
That's right.
We spent a whopping $12 on souvenirs. Woohoo! Finally, we stayed in a hotel in the city that we were flying out of and coming back to. So 2 nights in an airport plus the parking for the 19 days that we were gone was $393. Okay, so in those first days when we were getting ready to leave and coming back and some extra meals in Fort Lauderdale, we had some travel food. So the travel food totaled $344. For the total of 19 nights, the full price of this trip, door to door, was $17,383. I think in one of the previous preparation videos, I estimated we were going to be probably close to $18,000. So there we are. We stayed under what we budgeted. It is an expensive trip, though. You do get a lot from Viking, but it is more expensive, and it'll be our expensive trip for the year. Our remaining trips will be more budget-friendly, we hope. And we hope we're going to be able to show you how to make that so.
So, Sarah, after sharing all that information, I guess the most pressing question of the day is, would we do another Viking cruise? And the answer is absolutely.
Yes.
It was wonderful. I mean, probably, as we said, the best vacation we have ever been on.
We hope to have many more, though.
Yes, in fact, we loved it so much. We have already booked another Viking Ocean Cruise for next winter. But you're going to have to wait a little bit longer for us to reveal that to you later this year.
It's an exciting location, though.
And will be a very exciting trip.
If you're looking for comfortable travel, whether or not you're a senior traveler, Viking Cruises does offer that comfortable travel. We thoroughly enjoyed both our Viking River Cruise and now the Viking Ocean Cruise. If you have any other comments, you can add them below. If you've enjoyed this video and gotten some good information out of it, please give us a like. It really helps our channel grow. And you know what else helps our channel grow? Subscribing. We'd love to have you in our community where we try to share this travel and tips for making travel more comfortable for young people our age.
And so, until next time, we bid you adieu.
Adieu.